Welcome back to another Season 28 video. Today we're discussing a one-button T16 speed Rasha Meteor build. The idea of the build is that aside from casting your buffs and making sure you have full Rasha stacks, is after that you're able to just cast teleport the entire rift and nothing else. There's a few variations of this kicking around, a lot of them using Engiom. But for T16 and low-level greater rifts, you can easily make Aetherwalker work and never run out of arcane power. The benefit of Aetherwalker over Engiom is with Engiom you have to find an elite or champion to then get the buff to then be able to spam your teleport. With Aetherwalker, you're able to spam your teleport from the very beginning of the rift. First up, let's talk about the Rasha set bonuses and how this all works. I've already covered Rasha twice on the channel for this season, so I'm not going to go super in depth on the 4-set and 6-piece set bonuses. Effectively, what you need to know is you need to be attacking with all 4 types of elemental damage the wizard is capable of. That's lightning, cold, fire, and arcane. The part that really matters for this build is the 2-set bonus. That reads, damaging enemies with arcane, cold, fire, or lightning will grant immunity to that element and cause a meteor of the same damage type to fall from the sky. This only occurs if the wizard has meteor on their action bar, and the same meteor cannot happen twice in a row. All of our damage is going to be coming from just these auto-cast meteors. The meteor we're going to have on our bar is the lightning meteor. At the very beginning of the rift, you're going to cast that to get the lightning Rasha buff. You're going to have 2 passive buffs that deal damage. The first is Ice Armor Frozen Storm. That's going to put a cold aura around your character that's going to passively deal damage. And proc Cold Meteors. We're also running Spark Flint Familiar, which is another passive buff that will deal fire damage, proccing Fire Meteors. And then finally, Teleport Calamity is going to deal arcane damage. So every time you teleport into a pack of enemies, at the very least, you're going to deal arcane damage with the teleport and cold damage with the ice armor. And then fire meteors will be dropping from time to time from the spark flint. The only meteor that won't be dropping passively is the lightning meteor, which is unfortunate because really that's probably the meteor we would like to have the most because there's no delay to it. But for my testing, there's not really a good way to get it to proc consistently. Because remember, we have to be alternating damage types with the 2-piece bonus to get these free meteors to hit. I tried running Storm Armor Shocking Aspect for a bit instead of the Ice Armor to see if I could get that to work. And again, it was just a little bit too inconsistent. The great thing about Ice Armor Frozen Storm is every time you teleport into a pack, you're going to deal damage with that Ice Armor, you're going to get that cold damage going, and hit with Arcane with the teleport every single time. Both very consistent damage sources for meteors. Then also, unfortunately, there is no Lightning Rune for Familiar. If there was, we could potentially work that into the build too, but I think this is the best setup for this type of build, especially if you want to be actually manually casting the meteors as well. The best meteor for manually casting is the lightning meteor. Now with the 4-set, you do have to consistently be dealing damage throughout the rift to get this all resist. So cold and fire are going to passively happen for us. Arcane is going to happen when we teleport in somewhere with Calamity. And the way I have this build set up, the lightning you're only going to cast at the very beginning of the rift with Meteor. Now, you could cast your lightning meteors once every 8 seconds to just make sure you have the all resist up for the lightning portion. For T16, it really does not matter, but it's totally up to you if you want to cast more often, and the build just becomes a little bit less lazy at that point. The 6-set bonus is a little bit easier to manage. When you attack, you're going to get a buff for 2000% increased damage per element type, so stacking up to 4 times, up to 8000% damage. So again, at the beginning of the rift, when we cast our lightning meteor, we're going to get the first stack. We're going to get 2 more stacks passively from the ice armor and the familiar, and then we'll get that 4th stack from arcane with teleport. But kind of the way this works is you don't have to continuously deal damage with all 4 element types or attack with all 4 element types. The other 3 elemental attacks will keep all 4 stacks from the 6-piece bonus up for the entirety of the rift after you've only cast that lightning meteor 1 time at the beginning, as you can see in the footage. So again, it's pretty simple how the build plays. At the beginning of the rift, you put on your ice armor, you put on your spark flint familiar, you put on magic weapon, which is going to be another 10-minute buff. You cast your meteors 1 time to get the lightning portion of the Rasha buff, and then you just spam teleport. Every time you teleport into a pack, you're going to drop meteors automatically, and then you just keep moving. Now, I wanted this build to be as lazy as possible and just one button. So I did basically all my testing with never casting Meteor except for the very beginning of the Rift. You can absolutely cast Meteor more than that if you want to. That's your call, and in certain situations, the build may be faster doing that. But even with just teleporting around, this build is very capable of sub 1 minute T16. I don't think I ever had a run that went over 90 seconds. And most of them being maybe a minute 5 seconds to a minute 10 seconds if they went over a minute. Even T16 maps that have a lot of long hallways are totally fine with this build unless they have doors. Next up, let's take a look at the abilities. We've already talked about a lot of these quite a bit, so we'll make it quick. First up, Ice Armor, Frozen Storm. Again, we get that aura around our character, proccing all of the Rasha cold portion. Meteor Thunder Crash. Magic Weapon Conduit is going to give you 10% increased damage. This is a buff on your character. And then enemies hit by your attacks restore up to 3 arcane power. Teleport Calamity is going to release a short wave of force that stuns enemies for 1 second and deals arcane damage. The stun is actually very, very good in this build as well. You're just going to be constantly teleporting, constantly stunning everything. We'll also be getting the Wormhole rune from the Cosmic Strand offhand. This reads, after casting Teleport, you have 3 seconds to teleport 1 additional time. The great thing about this additional teleport is it doesn't cost arcane power, and it happens before the internal cooldown of teleport triggers. Familiar Spark Flint, that's going to proc the fire portion of our Rasha. It's also going to give us 10% increased damage. And then there's not really any other passive abilities to put into the build. So Diamond Skin, Enduring Skin is in here. I don't really use it. You can definitely use it, and it doesn't have to be Enduring Skin. This is just the 6-second version of Diamond Skin. You could also run Prism if you don't have all of the resource cost reduction in the build that you need. That's going to bring us to the passives. First up, we have Dominance. You're going to get a 2% of your life shield for 3 seconds every time you kill an enemy, stacking up to 10 times. Audacity is going to give you 30% additional damage to enemies within 15 yards. Galvanizing Ward. When you haven't taken damage for 5 seconds, you gain a protective shield that absorbs the next 60% of your life and damage. And then I'm currently running Elemental Exposure. It's pretty standard for Rasha builds typically. Keep in mind that if you're not manually casting Meteor, you're not going to be getting the lightning portion of this. But you will consistently be getting Arcane and Cold, and then sometimes Fire. So it's still a good passive. Definitely some other options here though. If you wanted to go for Unstable Anomaly for a second life, you could do that. Glass Cannon could even work. Probably don't run it on hardcore. Illusionist gives you 30% movement speed after you teleport. Doesn't really seem necessary to me with how much we're teleporting around. You're not really doing a lot of running, but you could try that. If you're having arcane power issues, you can go for Astral Presence for the 2.5 arcane power regen per second. You've got Blur, which is for the damage reduction. You definitely have some options there, so go ahead and just figure out what you like, mix and match some stuff. One of the really nice things about Wizard is they just have a ton of passives that work really well. There's not really anything that you have to have typically. I would say the one that comes closest to that would be Galvanizing Ward. It's kind of just in every Wizard build just about. Next up, let's take a look at the gear. As always, I will have a D3 Planner link in the video description that will have all proper stats on all of the gear. In this footage, we dropped it down to 800 Paragon, and some of my gear is augmented. You don't even need to have gear this good to run this. I was even running with a non-ancient Aether Walker for quite some time, and it really didn't make much of a difference. So we're running 5 pieces of the Rasha set, the pants, the belt, the chest piece, the amulet, and then the gloves. 2 pieces of Augilds, the shoulders, and the bracers. Running the Pride's Fall. This reads, your resource costs are reduced by 30% after not taking damage for 5 seconds. And we're a wizard, we're going to have all kinds of shields, very easy to keep this up. This helmet comes from Act 3 bounties. We've got the Aether Walker for the weapon, as we've already discussed. The Nilfer's Boast boots increases the damage of Meteor by 600%, and when your meteors hit 3 or fewer enemies, the damage is increased by 900%. Then we're running the Cosmic Strand for the offhand. Teleport gains the effect of the Wormhole rune. This is a crafted item. For rings, we're running the Ring of Royal Grandeur on our character. That's getting us the 6-piece bonus of Tal Rashas and the 3-piece bonus of Augilds, and then the Stone of Jordan. So each of your element's damage bonus is equal to your highest static elemental bonus to skill. So in this build, we are dealing 3 different types of elemental damage, or 4 if you want to manually cast your meteors. It's very good because you're able to just stack one elemental type, and all of the elemental damage that I deal will get that increase. Then for legendary gems, we're running Bane of the Powerful, Bane of the Trapped, and then Boon of the Hoarder. A couple variations on the gear. You could drop the Augild set completely. You could run Warzekian Arm Guards, and then whatever else you wanted to run in the shoulder slot here. Probably the Skeleton Pauldrons for a potential another second life. And then if you really want to run Greater Rifts with this setup, I would keep Augilds, and I would swap out the Pride's Fall and the Cosmic Strand for the Captain Crimson set. So to do that, you would run the Tal Rasha's helmet, the Tal Rasha's offhand, and then you'd be running Captain Crimson's belt and pants. So this will give you a solid amount of resource cost reduction, but it's also going to get you more damage. The only thing you really lose is the Cosmic Strand, so you're not going to have that wormhole rune on teleport. For the Kanai's Cube, in the weapon slot, we have the Grand Vizier. Reduces the arcane power cost of Meteor by 50%. And increases its damage by 400%. So in this build, the arcane power cost reduction doesn't really matter, but still a massive damage multiplier there. For the helmet, Meteor Shower Rune is now applied to all cast meteors and deals 400% increased damage. So the 2-piece Tal Rasha auto-cast meteors are not considered cast meteors. So they're not going to get the Meteor Shower Rune, but they still do benefit from the 400% increased damage. And then we have the Squirt's Necklace in the jewelry slot. While not taking damage, damage dealt is increased by up to 100%. Again, wizard, tons of shields, pretty easy to keep going. Alright, that's going to wrap it up, everybody. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.